Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel Let's Talk Boxing. Let's get into the DAZN card. I was going to do a series of different videos, or perhaps even one long video with different timestamps, but I thought people might just see a video that's like 45 minutes long and not bother to even press play. So I'm going to start off talking about the DAZN card, see how it goes, and then we'll do a separate video maybe for the top rank card and so on and so forth. Well, I want to start off talking about the big one on the card, and that was Bam Rodriguez. Jesse Rodriguez beat Christian Gonzalez by unanimous decision. It was the second fight in a row where I did not think this was an easy fight for Bam Rodriguez at all. And testament to that fact is that he did get his jaw broken. So we're going to talk about that and what we learned with regards to a potential Sunny Edwards fight. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Sunny Edwards, but this is a big threat, of course, to Sunny. Bam is no joke. But there are some technical errors he makes that a guy like Sunny could potentially be looking at and thinking, I could exploit this. But there's also something that Bam brings where if you're a Sunny Edwards fan, you might be concerned about. So let's talk about it. First and foremost, we know that Gonzalez was moving around the ring quite consistently and throwing long straight shots. He didn't want to allow Bam to settle his feet. He didn't want him to plant his feet. And at times he looked a little bit too rushed, as though he wasn't planting, as though he didn't have time to plant because of the incessant forward momentum of Bam. And what Bam likes to do in some ways is almost marry a Mexican style, that incessant come forward pressure, with almost like this new modern Eastern European style where you see a lot of these fighters like Loma, like Usyk, like Madrimov, where they like to step around you. They'll punch you or frame you in some way to affect your vision, and then they'll use that to step around you mid-attack. And they get you to reset, and they're punching as you're trying to reset. And so he marries that offensive footwork with changing angles with that incessant pressure. But when it came to him trying to cut off the ring and chasing Gonzalez down, there were some errors with his footwork. There were points where, like I said, he's trying to move forward very quickly to rush Gonzalez into his work, not allowing him to set. But there were moments where he's sort of jumping. He's almost trying to hop after Gonzalez, and you would see both feet off the floor at the same time at points, and that back foot would come too close to the lead foot as he lands, as his feet are landing. And there were points where Gonzalez is timing that. Just as his feet are about to land, he's not set to throw a punch. So Gonzalez would punch, pivot out again, get on the back foot, and now Bam has to reset again. Now Gonzalez doesn't move anywhere near as fluidly as Sunny Edwards. So you could look at that and say to yourself, there are going to be moments here where Sunny's really making Bam look silly. However, there is a flip side to that coin, and that is that Gonzalez does have a height and reach advantage. He's a few inches, I think 4 inches or so, taller than Sunny Edwards. He's got a longer reach. So he's able to stay on the outside and still pop long, hard shots from range without having to come into Bam's range while he's moving away. Sunny, being the shorter man with a shorter reach, even if he's getting Bam to reset, he might have to come into the wheelhouse, into the reach, into that pocket against Bam in order to land his shots before he then exits. But his feet are better than Gonzalez's, so he could just be on the edge of range. If he could read that distance, and he could be landing certain shots that Bam might not see as he's trying to pivot and turn, and then Sunny gets him to reset again. So you look at those areas and you think Sunny would have liked to have seen that. Having said that, the pressure was incessant, even with a broken jaw. He was coming forward consistently, and he was making Gonzalez really work. And when he was tiring him down, tying him down or tiring him out as the fight started to progress, and he's getting Gonzalez pinned or getting him to hold his feet, that's when you start to see Bam really let go of his varied combinations, and they can be very dangerous. He's a very good offensive fighter, and he's big and strong, and just from aesthetics, he does seem to be like the bigger, stronger man, physically stronger than Sunny Edwards. So Sunny won't want to be in a position, I wouldn't have thought, where he's starting to take sort of I'll give one, you give one against Bam. He's going to want to get him to be resetting. But if that plan A doesn't work, is that a difficult area for Sunny? Well, one of the things we saw in Sunny's last fight, I spoke about that rope-a-dope tactic he used, the Muhammad Ali tactic. He was able to sit on the back ropes in round 10, I believe it was, and he was able to just catch a lot of shots and roll with certain shots. And there were some shots coming under the elbow and he was being hit to the body, so he showed his toughness. But he was ultimately buying time for the next round for him to start getting back on his bike again, because there were a couple of rounds prior to that where the gap started to close a little bit and Alvarado was able to have some success. So as Sunny was able to then catch a breath after that little rope-a-dope, make Felix Alvarado really go to work, you saw that Sunny got on his bike again and started to look sensational in the last couple of rounds. The point is, Sunny is not uncomfortable with his back on the ropes. It's not just against Alvarado that we've seen this either. Against Mohamed Wasim, he was comfortable with his back on the ropes as well. So we know that Sunny's capable of doing that. We also saw against Mitolani that Sunny's able to get on the back foot, make Mitolani fall short, make him look very silly. But this wasn't just a runner. It wasn't like the Gonzalez performance last night where he looked rushed. There were moments where Sunny was willing to hold his feet and exchange with Mitolani. So if Sunny can, at points, hold his feet and exchange with Jesse, he will like what he's seeing there. He'll think to himself, if I can hang with him, and I'm sure I can in spots, then ultimately if I move around the ring, I can do particularly well. Now, when he's got his back on the ropes, there's something else that needs to be said as well. Bam, going back to that idea about how he steps around opponents, if you look at his fight against Israel Gonzalez, that wasn't the best possible performance for Bam. And a lot of people were a little bit disappointed because they'd seen the masterclass he put on against Quadras, against Rungvisai, and people were sort of expecting something special again. And what you saw is that Robert Garcia was saying, it was because it was his third fight of the year, and he, by the time he ended camp for the second fight and he got into camp for the third fight, he was a little bit tired without a rest, and we knew we couldn't pass up the opportunity to fight on the Canelo card and stuff like that. I actually think there's more to it than that, though. You see, one of the things Israel Gonzalez was doing is taking away the spacing to be stepped around. He was backing up onto the ropes, and he was saying to Gonzalez, okay, you're standing in front of me now, I'm going to let you lead off, and then I'll work with that. I'll punch with you, or I'll go after you even, but I'm not going to give you the space to step around me. Now, for those of you that remembered my breakdown for the first Anthony Joshua Alexander Usyk fight, one of the areas that I said AJ needed to focus on was doing exactly that, because Usyk does like to take that space and step around you. And you saw in the Tony Bellew fights and the Maris Briedis fights that when they would move back onto the ropes, there wasn't a position for Usyk to step around. So as they're waiting, weight shifted onto that back foot, and they're waiting for Usyk to initiate the entry. As he's fading in, if you can read his entry point, you can roll with a shot and come back and counter him. You can counter Usyk or time him on his entry. Where you have a problem is when you're chasing Usyk down and he's making you fall short and come back in, or if you're centering and he's able to blind you and step around you. Whereas when you're on the ropes, you're able to have some success. Now, Tony Bellew was made to work very hard, of course. He ended up getting taken out quite brutally. And of course, Maris Briedis lost a very close fight on the cards. He gave a really good account of himself. And we spoke about a whole bunch of other areas, right? I'm not saying this was the one area of how to beat Usyk. It's complicated. But the point I'm making is, much like Alexander Usyk, when you take away Bam's ability to set in front of a more stationary target and then to be able to move around you, he does lose a little something from his game. And so if Sunny can stop him from setting, and he can also, when he does set, stop him from having space to step around him, well then Bam can get countered with certain shots of his own. He's not that hard to find. He does get hit, Bam Rodriguez. And that's where the Mexican element comes in. He fancies his own offensive arsenal against yours. But this is not a defensive wizard. But the question remains, can Sunny take what he's dishing out? That is a question that needs to be answered. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents, about this particular performance from Bam Rodriguez. Has it changed your mind at all in terms of a showdown with Sunny Edwards? Do you give Bam more chance now or less chance? Let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.